All right, everybody, what is going on? What is going on? What is going on? Hold on. Hold on. 1 second here. 1 second here. Hold on. 1 second here. Hold on. Okay. All right. What is going on, everybody? I think we just got a really fucking good chapter. So things are a little bit. Let me give you guys the heads up. Let me give you guys the heads up of what's happening. All right. First, let's get the stream likes up to 50. What's reasonable right now? 50. Let's get the stream likes up to 50. Second, little preview. Okay, wait, let me answer these member chats real quick. Eric J.O., thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 26 months. A comedy chapter, bro. Evil Harold is so hilarious. Also, Jarl's gag that his helmet saved him is so stupid it made me lol. His helmet really did save him. Yeah, that's true. His helmet did save him. It's a legendary helmet. Evil Harold is so hilarious. I don't think it's a comedy chapter, but yeah, Evil Harold is just an evil dude. Phil Moore Jake, thanks for the 2. Zeus and Ragnar are sentient. Usopp hammer agenda. People talked about the theory that Usopp would wield a hammer by the end of all this. There's no way Usopp wields Ragnar, though. There's no way. That'd be kind of crazy. Harold just came to his senses. He came to his senses and decided to be evil. Yeah, he realized what he needed to do. He realized what he should have been doing all along. So the reason stream was late today, and the reason, I guess for you guys that's the main thing, right? Stream was late today. So, I'm about to be doing a little bit of a road trip. Me and my girlfriend were taking the dogs. We're going to go drive to see my family, and we're going to be I'm going to be on like a little bit of a mini vacation. So next week there will be a video next Tuesday. I think it's a good video. And then beyond that, here's the deal. Beyond that, if there is a chapter that comes out on Friday, I think it's hazy whether or not it's going to leak or not leak. If there's a chapter that comes out next Friday, I will cover it on stream. I am not doing a stream this Monday, so there will be no stream this Monday. Okay, so no stream Monday, stream Friday, next Friday, and there will be no video on Tuesday the 30th. No video on Tuesday the 30th. So just a heads up for everybody. And then we're back to our usual schedule. After that, everything's going to be back to normal. It's a little mini vacation for the end of the year, that's all. Hope you guys are okay with that. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, so what did we think about the chapter? I'm really excited because I feel like this chapter could be, next chapter could have maybe a better fight than we got even at God Valley. I think that's an interesting possibility. Hold on. Hold on. Yeah, I think we could get a better fight than what we got from the Roger, Garp versus Rocks fight. I think that's genuinely possible. For one, I think it's just cool because these are modern day characters, right? So we're getting to see Shanks and Loki and some of Gabon fighting too. So I think it's going to be a really cool matchup to see. And Harold, okay, so what I'm curious about with Harold is how strong is he now? He should probably be the strongest character in the world, right? Outside of Emu. We don't really count Emu, right? But I already felt like he's probably the strongest in the world post Rox's death. But now with the fact that he has actually been amplified even by Imu's abilities, I feel like that's even more certain, right? I imagine that there's no character stronger than him right now. Again, outside of Imu, we don't really count Imu. Let's get the Streamlets up to 50, by the way. Let's get the Streamlets up to 50. Taptio Treviso, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for so long, man. This Elbaf fruit reveal is making me so anxious because your videos have made me think it will reveal who will be the final villain of One Piece. If the Nika fruit, it would be so weird for a backstory. So here's my thing. I feel like it's two routes. So I personally feel like it's hard to explain why it's like if you just add up a lot of, I think there's two routes that the story can go, right? So we're trying to think, is Imu the final villain or Blackbeard the final villain, right? And my take has always been that what it comes down to is Blackbeard needs at least one other fruit to make himself final villain material. He's just not final villain material right now. That fruit is probably going to be a Zoan. That's just the way that things have been working nowadays. People like the mythical Zoans, right? The mythical Zoans are really strong. So, assuming it is a mythical Zoan, the question is basically like, what fruit would it be? What fruit makes sense for Blackbeard to have that would position him as the mythical Zoan being that needs to be defeated, fought against, right? I view that as only being two options. Either, because whatever the fruit is, it needs to be like a really powerful mythical Zoan, and it needs to be a fruit that is also a counterpart to Luffy's in a sense, right? So Imu, I'm assuming Imu has the Sea Devil fruit, right? Perfect counter to Luffy's Sun God fruit, right? Sea Devil versus Sun God, great stuff, right? So if Oda wants to make Blackbeard the final villain, one route is Blackbeard kills Imu, takes a Zoan, now Blackbeard basically is the perfect final opponent for Luffy. So that's route number one. The only other route, the only other mythical Zoan Devil fruit on the horizon that makes sense, that would fit the criteria of being like extremely powerful enough that like it could make Blackbeard like close to final villain material, right? Or at least second to last before Imu, and also serves as a counterpart to Luffy's fruit, right? Would be whatever the Elbaf fruit is hyped up to be, right? This hyped up Elbaf fruit, like supposedly the world-ending fruit, likely a counterpart to Luffy's Nika fruit. All of that fits the bill, right? So to me, either Blackbeard is going to, before all is said and done, either Blackbeard is getting Imu's fruit or he's getting this Elbaf Devil fruit. Now, if the Elbaf Devil fruit is simply the Nika fruit, right? Loki doesn't eat this fruit, the fruit ends up in Luffy's hands instead, then I think the options get narrower. It's tighter, and it seems to me more like the route that we're going to go down is Blackbeard's going to take Imu's fruit, right, and position himself as the final villain. Okay, so that's the simpler route. Okay, the fruit in the chest is just the Nika fruit. Some shit goes down. Nika fruit gets out of hand, falls in the hands of the world government. Shanks gets it, then Luffy gets it. Yada yada. Okay, route number two. Whatever the Elbaf fruit is a really fucking powerful, important fruit or whatever, right? Loki gets it. Blackbeard eventually kills Loki, takes the fruit. That's the other route that things could go down, right? So, I don't know, if you're a Loki fan, and I'm a Loki fan right now. I'm liking the character a lot. We just didn't get to spend much time with him recently, right? But he's quickly turning out to be really pivotal to the story of Elbaf and the flashback in general, obviously. So, if you're a Loki fan, I think you actually maybe don't want that fruit to be something other than the Nika fruit. I think you actually might want that fruit to be just you want that fruit to be the Nika fruit, okay? Because if it is some other really powerful mythical Zoan, I think that turns Loki into a Blackbeard victim in the long run, possibly. I think that's possible. It's not guaranteed, of course, but I think it makes it more likely. Tempo FGC, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 4 months, man. This chapter made all 4 Yonko brothers by associative property. Shanks, Buggy, and Ace via Roger. Oh, shit. Ace to Luffy, obviously, and Blackbeard, Whitebeard. Nepo piece is real. Yeah. I mean, we already knew that Buggy and Shanks were basically adopted children. it wasn't anything crazy new, but it does solidify it more that they view themselves as Roger and really the Roger Pirates in general's sons. Meek, thanks for the 5. Hey, how'd you like the chapter? Favorite and least favorite moment? I really like the chapter, man. I really like the chapter. This gave me a injection of excitement, I suppose, post God Valley. I think there's kind of a God Valley hangover because there's so much build up to God Valley. Obviously, for like hundreds of chapters, there's been build up to God Valley, and then we get there, and then we're so focused in on it and what's going to happen, and then week after week, we're getting like God Valley stuff, and it's exciting. And then it wraps up, and it's kind of like the main event that we were all excited about just closed out. But we still have more flashback to go, just because Oda's framed it as a flashback within a flashback, right? So we're now continuing on after it. So like naturally there was just kind of, I would call it a God Valley hangover, where there's Oda's now having to build up and set the scene again for new events. But now we're in it, and now it's an exciting time. Right now it's exciting again because it does seem like the flashback is going to close out with a bang. Even if this event wasn't hyped up as much as God Valley, I think that the fight that we get out of it could be just as great. Maybe even more dramatic, tragic, Favorite and least favorite moment? I don't think I really have a least favorite moment. Least favorite moment? This is not a least favorite moment. This is like, how do I say this? I'm not sure why Oda... Why is it important that the God's Knights are boosted by their seal thing? Why is that important? I don't really get that part. I don't know why that's important, because it's not like the God's Knights are like so powerful that Oda would need to give us an explanation of like how they're so strong. You kind of just see him. It's like, okay, so this is like the elite of the Celestial Dragons. These are like Yonko Commander type characters. Cool, makes sense, right? Because now it's just like, damn, how weak is Somers without the fucking without his seal? So I'm a little surprised by that. Same with like Shamrock. If Shamrock is supposed to be a Yonko level fighter or something, we don't know. I think Oda could just tell us that, yeah, Shamrock, Shanks' twin brother, is a Yonko level fighter. I don't get the explanation. Why is it needed that the God's Knights are actually augmented, Same with the Gorosei, right? So it turns out that the Gorosei, like Saturn, fucking was that weak even with his abilities boosted. Like, they're all stats buffed, and you know what I mean? Like, I think it would make more sense if this was like some really stupidly strong group of characters, the God's Knights and the Gorosei, and it's like, oh my god, Oda, why are you introducing so many characters that are like above Yonko level in the end game? And it's like, well, it's because they're all artificially boosted by Imu, and it's like, okay, that makes sense, all right? But for us, it's just almost like, I don't personally feel this way, but a lot of people do feel like the Gorosei and the God's Knights are not strong enough as is. And so to then further establish that, like, but wait, even as strong as they appear to be, they're actually weaker than that because they're all boosted by Imu. So imagine their organic strength is even lower. So I think that's kind of wacky to me. It makes sense. They're celestial dragons who never go through hard battles to get stronger, says Obsidian Angel. I guess, okay, you know what? Maybe that follows. I guess that follows. At the same time, though, it just feels like they don't seem inexperienced in battle, though. So I don't know if that's exactly the deal. It seems like they're experienced fighters from what we've seen. So I guess that could make sense. That's a good explanation. It's just at the same time, I think nobody was ever questioning. Like, it was never a question in anyone's heads. I don't think I saw a sea of readers being like, oh my god, how are the Gorosei so strong? How are the God's Knights so strong? They're so broken. I don't think I ever saw that. Again, if anything, I've seen lots of commentary on like, the God's Knights should be stronger. The Holy Ropo, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I just don't think that this helps. I think it's answering a question that people weren't really asking. Like, it makes sense in retrospect, because it's like, wait, how did they get so strong if they're generally not fighting as much as characters on the Blue Seas? So I guess that makes sense, but at the same time, I think it just makes them look worse. And especially in Harold's case, there is no need to give Harold a buff, because Harold, by all rights, should probably already be the regeneration. Obviously, that buff makes sense, because everybody already gets that, but I'm just like, Harold is already like Rock's level, like Pirate King level, what's the need to establish that he's actually even amped above that? So I don't know. I guess we just gotta wait and see. I do wonder. Here's my big question. I wonder if Harold right now is as strong as Dami reversied rocks, because it's unclear. Like, it's clear that there's two ways that Emu can force his power amp on you, right? Or can give you a power amp, right? One seems voluntary, which is the seal, and then the other seems forced, which is Dami reversi, right? And that's when you turn all demonic and everything like that, right? So both ways you're getting a power amp. One's just consensual, the other is not consensual, right? So my question is that even though Harold didn't get the cosmetic change that comes with Dami reversi, right, is the effect still the same in that he's getting a power amp similar to Rock's? Is that what's happening here? I think the only way that Oda could really answer this is if he had Harold do a solo sky split. Because otherwise I just don't really get the... Like, it feels too vague. Because Harold's already so strong, right? He's already so strong. It's like he's Pirate King level or something like that. And then, what is Oda trying to tell us here? So now Loki, Shanks, and Gaban are going to fight Harold, but it's actually an amped Harold. Is it amped as much as, like, Rox was? Because before it was almost like, oh, cool, like, Harold and Rox are equal, so that helps give us a good sort of measuring stick for characters today, right? We know how strong Rox was, we know how strong Harold was, roughly, right? So, or we know that Harold and Rox are equal to one another, so we can kind of have a nice little point of comparison between the two across eras. But now it kind of complicated it because he's like, well, actually, they fought Rox while Rox was amped up by this ability. And now they're fighting Harold today, but Harold is also amped up by an ability. But it's unclear how these two amps really stack against one another. So I don't know. Think he's same power level as Rox? Yeah, let's do a little... Okay. I think the only way we'd confirm it is if Oda made sure to do a solo sky split for Harold or something like that. Right now, equal to Dami Rox. Yes, no. I would say that story logic-wise, I think it would be good if Oda simply established that the God's Knight seals gave you the same amp as being Dami reversied, simply because it would give a little explanation as to why Emu doesn't Dami reversi his own subordinates to make them stronger and more effective. I think that fixes that sort of little hole, because, like, we don't want to be in the final war and, like, the Gorus are fighting, the God's Knights are fighting, and readers are like, why doesn't Emu just Dami reversi them to make sure they don't lose the fights? Because it would make a lot of sense if the answer is just that they already have the boost, you know? They already have the boost. Okay, so people are kind of leaning towards yes, but not overwhelmingly so. I mean, we need some more data. Rox showed us a lot that was just like the first thing Rox did was just tear through, you know, like he kind of just ran through Kaido, Big Mom, Whitebeard, Iffy, or whatever, but, like, he did a lot, and then he's fending off Roger, like, he's pushing Roger and Garp to extreme diff even together. Yeah, my favorite... okay, so I was expanding on my least favorite moment. So let's get into the rest of the question. Favorite moment. Favorite moment, I think, might have been... maybe Loki... I don't know what the favorite moment was. I thought the panel of Harold just slashing through all the giants was pretty cool. I think Loki running I think Loki getting Ragnar at the end is pretty cool, like seeing how he got that, because I think now we'll see how significant Ragnar is. I just like the chapter in general. I thought the chapter in general was pretty cool. Joyboy SGLS, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 20 months, man. Yo, Morge, Elbaf has truly felt like some of the best, like the best of post-time skip writing mixed with pre-time skip writing. All that's left is for the Straw setups to be executed on. How confident are you that will happen? I'm very confident. Oda's been doing such a great job with the side characters throughout Egghead and Elbaf. I think that he will carve the time for the Strats when the time comes. So, like, if he's able to carve time for all those characters, I truly believe that he'll be able to do a good job with the Strats. Ron to Dawn 11, thanks for joining the Pirate King tier. Thank you very, very much. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, man. thanks for the support. And yeah, make sure you check out the previous Pirate King podcasts that come out every month. And also look out for the submissions for this month's Pirate King podcast that'll probably be dropped maybe not next week, maybe the first week of the new year or something like that. But thank you for the support, man. Henchme987, thanks for joining the Yonko. I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, as usual, thanks for being such a regular part of chat, man. Yeah, thanks for joining, guys. Dr. Farewell, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 5 months. Do you think Scopper was just playing dumb with Shanks, or did he really not know about Emu's existence/powers? Also, why isn't Ragnar considered an ancient weapon, considering its destructive capabilities? So, crazy idea here, which is this delves a little bit into next Tuesday's video. Okay, this delves a little bit into next Tuesday's video, but I don't want to go too much here. This is actually not talked about in next Tuesday's video because I think it's too speculative. Okay, but I'm touching on something that a broader topic that I talk about in next Tuesday's video. So, without spoiling too much, in next Tuesday's video, one of the things I talk about are the connection between 3 kingdoms and 3 sovereigns. Okay, let's just keep it simple: Fishman Island, Wano, and Elbaf. Okay, that trio. Fishman Island has Poseidon. Wano has Pluton. Elbaf, I think it'd be really cool if Elbaf has Uranus, and Uranus is just referred to as Ragnar. And you kind of see this trio, like Shirahoshi, the mermaid princess of Fishman Island, she herself is Poseidon, right? And then Momonosuke, the leader of Wano, he is in charge of the country that wields Pluton, right? And then you get to Elbaf, and you have Loki, the prince of the giants, and he actually wields, potentially, the ancient weapon Uranus. Ragnar's powers are sky-related, lightning, crazy stuff, and everything like that. So it's just something to consider. I think that it would be like a cool little... This is not what next Tuesday's video is about, but it does get into some stuff about that trifecta of kingdoms and sovereigns. That's what it's really more so delving into, and breaking down what seems to be set up to be Loki's role. But as far as we know right now, the real ancient weapon is... Uranus, it's like Uranus seems to be Emu's weapon, right? Like that's what Emu has. I think it would be a cool twist on Oda's part if it turned out that Ragnar is the ancient weapon Uranus, and then what Emu has is something totally different, maybe even more powerful, right? So that's just something to consider. Maybe Oda was tricking us with that or something like that. And with what little we saw of Ragnar being used, right? It's ancient weapon material, because Loki swung it once, and it brought down a lightning bolt that, if you go back and look at it, it brings down a lightning bolt that's the size of a normal island. Like, the lightning that it brings down is just crazy huge. It's just Elbaf itself is so vast in scale that it doesn't seem like that right away, but if you look at the... it just seems like a lightning bolt striking a tree, but if you zoom in and see how crazy big it is in comparison to Elbaf, like... Put it this way, the lightning that Loki brought down with Ragnar, it is larger than mountain ranges in Elbaf. And you can literally see the same, you know that entire area that was the Legoland that the Straw Hats were in the first 5 chapters of the arc, right? Like that huge Legoland area, basically a miniature city, right? That whole, and that's within a castle in itself, right? That castle is like tiny in comparison to the lightning bolt. So what Ragnar can do, I'm not saying it's the ancient weapon, but if Oda revealed that it's the ancient weapon Uranus, it would kind of fly. Like, and I kind of like that sort of, how do I say this? We were told about the ancient weapons, right? So I think I would like the idea of the hammer being an ancient weapon, simply because it makes each weapon feel pretty unique in that Pluton is like a ship, right? It's like a ship. Pluton is a fucking ship that's purpose is to destroy islands, right? But then Shirahoshi, Poseidon, is an actual individual, and that's kind of a surprise twist on what we expect of an ancient weapon. Everyone was like, oh shit, a person can be an ancient weapon, right? And she controls the Sea Kings, right? So the ship is more like clear destructive force, right? Shirahoshi is more able to control armies and things like that, essentially an army of sea monsters. And then the final ancient weapon being a literal weapon, right? Something that somebody can pick up and wield in combat. I think that would be really, really cool as well, you know? I think that makes each of the ancient weapons feel pretty unique. I used to be kind of opposed to, when we got the idea that Imu had destroyed the Lucia kingdom, potentially with the ancient weapon Uranus, I was a little opposed to the idea at first, simply because I felt like it was similar territory, pretty much identical territory to what Pluton does, because Pluton is a warship, it's described to us as a warship that can destroy islands, right? So it's this weapon of mass destruction, it's the One Piece version of a nuke. But then we travel a little further in the story and it's like, well, Uranus is an ancient weapon that basically does the same thing but better, because it doesn't have to fucking sail around, it can just fly from above in the sky and just nuke you from above, and it serves to destroy islands. So I think I was a little thrown by that. I was like, that feels like two of the ancient weapons are pretty damn similar. One's just a strictly better version of it, right? I don't know what Pluton would do that would be better than what Imu has. And then Shirahoshi's just like her own thing. Whereas with this version, I kind of see, if the Ragnar is the ancient weapon Uranus, I can see merits to each one of those three, and they all do different things. Like Pluton is the most raw power, it can blow up islands, but it's also a one-trick pony, right? Like it's a ship, it's limited, you can't just like walk into a fight with it or anything like that. Shirahoshi maybe has the most power in general, in that you can control Sea Kings off the world, but it's really hard to just use in warfare on its own, and Shirahoshi herself is kind of vulnerable, right? And then Ragnar / Uranus, theoretically, if that's what it is the straight up best weapon you can just hand to an individual, and makes you basically like broken in combat, but it's ultimately doesn't have the same scope of power probably as what Poseidon and Pluton can do. So I know I'm rambling a little bit there, but I'm just spitballing based on, you know, just the potential. Like the reality is that it's more likely than not that it's not an ancient weapon. It is just the ancient weapon Uranus is what we were told Imu has, and that's just what it is. As for your other part of the question, sorry I went on a tangent. Was Gabon playing dumb with Shanks, or did he really not know about Imu's existence / powers? I think it's complete. This is just the biggest frustrating thing about. It's become more frustrating lately. I don't think this was as frustrating in the past in terms of One Piece, but it's become more and more prominent lately. I think because now we're at a point in the story where Oda is now connecting all of the lore pieces, and all of the characters from across the story are being revealed to have known each other, etc., right, in different ways, and having been on speaking terms with one another, and we're kind of finding out just how much everybody knows. One Piece's plot really only works if characters just never share information with one another. I mean, they can sometimes share information, like Roger telling Whitebeard, or like Roger telling Shanks some final words and stuff, but there's so many instances where it's like, wait, why didn't this character just tell this other character this thing? And it's like, they just didn't do it, right? So that's just the way One Piece, for One Piece's story to function, Oda just has to write it like that. Let's get the stream likes up to 100. I kind of give a pass in some ways, just because it's like, the way One Piece characters talk and interact, Oda's already written the world to be more whimsical, right? So you kind of don't see, like, if you see how the Straughts talk to each other and stuff like that, a lot of the times they have no idea about, like, things that have happened in the past, or like the crew's previous adventures, or maybe it's been mentioned, but they don't really know that much about it. If you see the Straughts, like, interact on the ship, it's a lot of goofing around and stuff like that. To date, one of my favorite little interactions in the story is this. They're all going down to Fishman Island, and Luffy asks Zoro the question, so Zoro, where did the paw guy send you? And Zoro's like, oh, you're not going to believe this, okay? I really, really like that moment it's such a silly, like, it's just like, it's a rare moment where, like, this really interesting thing happened to a One Piece character, right? Like, this sort of significant, like, you know, bigger picture world-related thing. Like, yeah, I was trained by fucking Mihawk or whatever, and the Straughts are actually talking to each other about it, and that's rare in the story. It's bizarre, but it's just like, oh my god, like, that's cool that Zoro thinks it's cool, that Zoro thinks that Luffy will find it interesting that he trained with Mihawk, right? And it just begs the question, like, does Luffy tell his crew all of the details of what he goes through at Impel Down and Marine Ford and everything like that? Like, it just feels like lots of times there's just gaping, huge gaps in knowledge between what the crew members know and share with one another. And they're all out and about doing really fucking interesting things, you know? I just thought that was cool. That's one of my favorite little interactions because it feels real. It feels like, it's like, damn, Luffy's actually asking Zoro where he got sent, and Zoro actually has an interesting story to tell him that both he and Luffy will care about. Anyway. Joseph eBay, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 14 months. Yo, Morge, what was OP anime moment that hooked you on the series, and which moment eventually turned you towards the manga? From Pirate King Podcast. All right, so, anime moment that hooked me on. Yeah, I feel like this is something that I've probably discussed on the Pirate King podcast before. Hooked me on the series. So the moment was Zoro versus the Buggy Pirates. Zoro versus the Buggy. It's a little mixed in my head, but that's what I remember as the first moment that like got me interested, because I think that's the first One Piece scene that I saw. And it was really cool because it was just like Luffy's in the cage. This dude Zoro shows up. Buggy, who actually seemed very sinister and intimidating at that point in the story, right? At that point, if you go back and watch just that scene with no context, right? Like you're a blind viewer and you watch just that scene, Buggy seems pretty cool. Because this dude Zoro shows up who seems like a badass, should I say Zolo, and Buggy challenges him and then Zolo cuts him, but then he's still all good. He's all good, and now Zolo's the one that's getting fucked up. But then he's fending off Buggy and everything, and then he runs over to the cannon and flips the cannon and then blows a Buggy and the Buggy Pirates. I just love that whole sequence for whatever reason, because when you're a kid, you're used to cartoons moving like a lot faster, like, you know, but this is like a whole 20-minute episode that where like 10 minutes of it are just like covering this scene, and I'm just on my the edge of my chair, like everything's moving so slow and the pacing's so slow and everything feels so serious and dramatic. Little did I know in hindsight that that's just like the most whatever scene of all time. But I did also get to tune into other One Piece episodes. So I saw like bits and pieces of Luffy versus Kuro. And I think one moment that really stuck out in my head, and I was like, I just need to watch more of this series, was when I happened to tune into Luffy versus Don Krieg. And I've said this so many times before, but one of the things that really makes anime stand out when you're a kid is that you're just so used to TV, like American cartoons that are still really good and everything, but like American cartoons like a Ben 10 or Danny Phantom or like fucking American Dragon Jake Long or Teen Titans or whatever the fuck, like everything moves at a pace where the fights take place in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the episode and everything resolves, right? Like it's a fight scene and it can be a good fight scene, but that's it, right? Most of the other stuff is like setting up the conflict of the episode and like what's the emotional stuff that they're going through, and then you get to the end of the episode and then they have a fight and then everything wraps, right? Anime really stands out when you're a kid because you're just in it for 20 minutes and the fight is stretching across these 20 minutes and nothing might be resolved by the end of the episode, and that's fucking crazy. Like you're just in the fight for that long and everything's going slow and they're talking to each other and then there's moments of conflict, but then the episode comes to an end and the hero hasn't defeated the villain yet and it's like to be continued, and it's like, what the fuck? How, like it's so drastically more dramatic than what you get in cartoons, like American cartoons, that it just like really hooks you. So I remember that with Luffy versus Don Krieg, that section where Luffy keeps trying to stop Don Krieg's spear and he keeps getting blown up over and over for it. For like 3rd grade or 4th grade me, that was just like, oh my god, like this is happening again and again and again and it's not being resolved and he can't defeat this spear. And I might be wrong, but I think the episode concluded without Luffy break, or like I stopped watching before Luffy was able to break the spear. So I was really just like, damn, how does he beat this guy? So I think that was the moment that made me feel like I really got to watch this show. I think the Zolo versus the Buggy Pirates was the scene that first got me interested. And which moment eventually turned me to the manga? There was no specific moment other than I caught up. I caught up to the anime. It was during Eni's Lobby. And I'd caught up to the anime. I was getting really tired of waiting to get to Luffy versus Lucci. I think I caught up to the anime just as the Straw Hats CP9 fights ended, but I wanted to get to Luffy versus Lucci. So for me, that was just like, I'm waiting, and then I start peeking ahead. I just start peeking ahead to what goes on in the How Does Luffy Beat Lucci? And then eventually it turned into, yeah, I gave breaks, I let episodes pile up. I just, especially after Enies Lobby ended, I was just continuing to peek ahead, and I was like, I'll read ahead in the manga and then go back and watch the anime. I still considered myself an anime viewer. And then at some point, you know what killed it? This is where the anime fucks up. Actually, no, maybe this is why the anime doesn't do filler arcs. I think I just understood. I think I finally just had an epiphany. But this is probably why the anime doesn't do filler arcs. I dropped the anime for good once the Don Achino filler arc was going on. Because before that, what I was doing was, and it's a good filler arc, by the way. I think as far as filler goes, it's a fun storyline. I actually really like that storyline. But what I was doing was I'd read the manga, but also watch the anime, read the manga, also watch the anime. I was doing both. And then we hit a point, like Thriller Bark's going, and I'm going back to watch the anime episodes, but it's fake episodes, right? So at a certain point, I'm no longer incentivized to keep watching the anime, right? Before I was doing both, and then the anime takes a breather. It's like we're gone for a bit, and I'm just like continuing to read the manga. And by the time Thriller Bark got going, I went back to, I was like, finally, I can go back to watching the anime too. I've already read a lot of the manga now, right? So I'm in the manga pretty deep in Thriller Bark's manga, right? And now I'm going back to catch up on the anime. And it just feels slow, because it's like, got to get through the first episodes of Thriller Bark. And I'm realizing, it's going to be a lot of weeks before I get to the juicy stuff, like the Strats fighting Oars. So at a certain point, I just stopped watching. I think that's where I stopped. There was nothing that turned me off of the anime specifically, other than having caught up. And then I guess there just being a gap, like a filler arc, and then me not being invested enough anymore in the anime to I just became a manga reader out of consequence. And it's really fucking post-time skip that made me realize that now I just don't want to post-time skip that made me realize that, like, now, even if I go back and watch anime episodes, they're just bad now, you know? When I saw Fishman Island. Tiptia Treviso, thanks to 2. This is for future Abyss power-ups for Blackbeard pirates. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, but I still think that that's not going to do enough. Like, Shiryu with an Abyss power-up, is that going to be like an endgame Zoro level opponent or something? I don't know about that. Meek6173, thanks for the 5. By the way, Jarl is 100 times stronger than Yorl, lol. Bro died to 5-year-old Big Mom. By the way, what fruit/ability do you think Ragnar has? So, if we were to say that Ragnar has... let's get streamlights up to 100 real quick. So, I feel like Jarl being a lot strong, I think that Oda is just, like, inconsistent with this, you know? I think Jarl would have gotten fucked up just like Yorl. I don't think he's much stronger. I don't think that really makes sense. You know, if Jarl could have stopped Big Mom, then he would have. I think it's literally just like, my take is basically Harold was holding himself back for a good portion of this this chapter. And then once he stops holding himself back, it's not like Jarl can do anything. You know, once he gets like full on, like, I'm just gonna fuck everybody up, Jarl is kind of useless at that point. Assuming Ragnar isn't like an ancient weapon, Uranus, or anything like that, then I think that Ragnar probably had some sort of, it's like a hammer that ate a mythical Zoan. That would be my guess. The hammer ate a mythical Zoan back in the day. No idea what the fuck that mythical Zoan would have been. Forest God, does that make sense? No. I have no idea. Henchme987, thanks for the 2. Oda invented the seal just to retcon the arm loss. But how does that retcon the arm loss? Andrew Anami, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 39 months, man. What is your favorite theater experience? Going to go watch the new Avatar movie in Dolby 3D, definitive format. And I don't watch these movies outside the theater, as any other viewing format is artistically compromised. I respect that quite a bit. I really respect that. My favorite theater viewing experience. Oh, that's actually really tough. That's a good question. That's a really good question. My family used to go watch movies in theaters a lot more frequently. But that hasn't been the case That hasn't been the case these days. Now that we're all more grown up and everything. My favorite theater viewing experience... Shit, that's a very good question. That's a very, very good question. What is... That's a really good question. You know what? It's actually probably from childhood. I think one that it's ultimately what you remember, right? So I remember I went with all of, like, I got, like, my parents, me, and, like, my friends from the neighborhood, we all went to go watch Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Is it at World's End? Yeah, the third one in the series. And I really loved the Pirates series when I was a kid. It's the manga that I love now. Yeah, and I just remember that because, not because the movie was the best movie ever or anything like that, but just because I just remember it was a good time going with that group. Yeah, I did watch Way of Water in theaters, and, like, I always think it's dumb when people trash the Avatar movies for, like, having a bad plot or, like, bad characters or writing and stuff. I'm just like, this is beautiful. This is like, I genuinely enjoyed watching Way of Water. I thought the first one wasn't good. I did not like the first one, period, because people were gushing about the visuals. My dad and I went to watch it. I didn't think the visuals were that amazing. Like, they were technically very amazing for their time, but it wasn't enough that I was just like, okay, this overcomes how bad the movie is. But watching Way of Water was so fucking relaxing. Like, you're just sitting there. It's like, how do I put this? I don't do this as much now, but I enjoy just watching, like, at home, watching, like, Blue Planet and stuff like that, right? There was a period of time where I would put on nature stuff quite a bit and just watch that and relax or whatever, right? Way of Water, super relaxing. You're just sitting there. They're all in this nice water area. There's pretty stuff going on, fake animals and shit like that. But it's just such a chill time. I like Way of Water a lot, and I think you only get that effect in the theaters. So I don't know if this new one is going to be like that or anything like that, but Way of Water did actually impress me visually. The first one didn't. I don't know why. Like, I got that it's better technically in terms of visuals or whatever than other movies of its time, but I haven't seen that first movie in forever. I don't even know if it holds up visually now. Way of Water was definitely that was a good time. I like Way of Water, and I wasn't high, if that's what you guys are thinking, because I went with friends who are not smokers, so I wasn't gonna do that. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. Your Shanks Ace Devil Fruit theory seems more likely now. I mean, I think it's very, very likely. I have that penciled in as canon in my head. Let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. Harold referred to his sword as legendary, likely yet another supreme grade blade that is not elaborated on whatsoever in the story. Let me tell you this, side note. Yeah, the legendary blades, I think it's just like, I don't know how much the legendary blades even matter, because, like, everyone's just coating their shit with hockey, so how big of a difference does the sword make? The sword's not even cutting anything. The sword doesn't make contact, in theory, right? The sword doesn't touch, there's no touching, so what difference does it fucking make? Anyway, I'm surprised there's not discussions about a certain, well, maybe, I don't even want to bring up those discussions, but I'm just surprised, like, I guess I am kind of bringing up the discussion, because I think it's worth bringing up, but, like, is Shanks, like, a lot weaker here, or is Shanks the same strength as he is now? I'm not going to read too much into the fact that we didn't see a bunch of, like, crazy hockey lightning from Shanks and Gaban's attack, because Oda sometimes just doesn't draw all that shit. So we'll get a better idea next chapter of how strong Shanks and Gaban are. Gaban should be closer to his prime, actually. So I'm not saying we're seeing prime Gaban here, but we actually might finally get a glimpse of what Rayleigh and Gaban were like when they were, younger. Fading Phase, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 9 months. The fact that Loki is probably going to take all of the blame to protect his father's name and legacy, and seeing Harold's admission to his mistakes, I'm loving these characters more and more with every chapter. Yeah. I think this chapter was great for both Harold and Loki's character. I don't think that people will come around to like Harold necessarily, like by and large, but I think that you can respect where his heart is. Like, he's not doing any of this for himself ever, right? He's ready to kill himself the moment he realizes he's a threat to his people, and he doesn't care about his legacy either. He's like, you could tell everybody in Elbaf that I was fucking evil, stupid, yada yada, like, you be the hero of Elbaf, and he's making all of those decisions in a snap second, right? So I can respect him in that way. Oops, got that pull up too long. I can respect him in that way, and I'm definitely believe that Loki is going to take Harold's evils and just claim that it was him, that Harold was a good king, preserve his reputation. I think it'll be really great stuff for both characters. Thomas Davis, thanks for the 5. Harold thinks Loki can beat him just by eating devil fruit, so the buff probably isn't as strong as Rox was. Don't know if he's stronger than Roger still, to be honest. I mean, we don't have a gauge for how strong Loki himself is just yet, but so the buff probably isn't as strong as Rox was. The thing is that, like, Harold figures that Loki's the only one who's got a chance, you know? Like, I don't think Harold is necessarily... Let me read it again. Hold on. I mean, the fruit is crazy strong. Like, they literally think it's a fruit that can end the world. Jarl's like, you can't eat it, Harold. It would be the end of the world, right? So this isn't an ordinary... It's not just eating a fruit. This is, what do you call? A next level fruit, right? Hold on. What does Harold say specifically? Loki must be the one to eat. No one else can beat me with these godly powers. Yeah, I mean, there's no one, like, no one else has a shot, right? I mean, maybe I'm being generous with this interpretation, but it's literally like, this is our shot, right? No one else can beat me with these godly powers. Loki's the only one who could do it, right? I think we'll get a better idea next chapter of how to interpret this. Basamo Madawi, because we're going to get to see, like, how much do Shanks and Gabon participate? Because if it's, like, Shanks plus Gabon, near Prime Gabon at this point, Shanks plus near Prime Gabon, plus Loki with Devil Fruit, plus Ragnar all together required to beat Harold, I think that's, you know, I think that's probably comparable to Rox, right? Domir versus Rox. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of circular because it's like, you got to assume... We just need to get it right. If Oda gives us a solo sky split from Harold, I think that would be the thing that kind of confirms it. I think there's no other way to really confirm it, right? Basim El Madawi, thanks for the 5. I've never disliked a character more than I disliked Harold. This has never happened with anyone else before, but he has just been such a loser. He fixed Elbaf! Harold has done so much... Like, this is frustrating because, like, at the end of it all, Harold actually did a really fucking good job. I think he had the hardest job of any king in any of One Piece's countries, by far, because he had to fix, like, this ancient civilization. He united all of Elbaf, so he combined all 8 villages, made them all live in peace. Then he brought education, civilization, made them stop being barbaric and violent and hurting people, right? That's a huge culture change, gigantic culture change, right? And then basically he fixed Elbaf's reputation worldwide too, right? Humans love Elbaf now. Remember that chapter where all of Elbaf was starving? Who remembers that? All of Elbaf was starving, and ships from all over the world, from human nations, came to give Elbaf aid, which they wouldn't have fucking done in the past, right? So, he's a good king. Like, he did a good job. His sins are basically he was a bad friend to Rox. That's the big thing. He was a bad friend to Rox. He could have probably been a more present father for Loki, but I don't think he was a bad father for Loki. He's, like... By the standards of One Piece, I think it's silly to critique him from fatherhood because, like, we don't really get on fucking, like, so many One Piece characters are neglectful fathers or whatever, and people aren't like, fuck Dragon because this shit or whatever, right? You know, like, as far as One Piece fathers go, he's on the better end of the spectrum, I'd say, or at least middle ground, right? So, his biggest sin is that he was a bad friend. He was a good king, and he's, like, a good-hearted character, clearly. I don't know. He's just dumb. Dumb. Yeah, he was just dumb. But at least he's able to own up to his mistakes and the fact that he was stupid, you know? Empty Mind, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 5 months. What was yours and everyone's reaction when Emu first got revealed? And have you played/plan on playing Elden Ring yet? Also, I find myself questioning logical stuff almost every new chapter. I will keep saying, I feel like I've had to say it more frequently nowadays. One Piece, Oda's strength is not logic, it's emotion. He wants to set up for emotional scenes and setups. So like, emotional scenes is that. He wants to set up for emotional scenes and character moments. So look, like if you step back, what's Oda's mindset? He likes the idea of basically, there was this king who was beloved by his people, Harold. He did all of this great stuff for his kingdom. And then he had this prince who's like kind of treated as this piece of shit and hated by everybody and this outcast and never knew love or whatever. But at the end of the day, when the king screws up and he offers his son a chance to be the hero, the son instead chooses to preserve his father's legacy and continue to take more blame and hatred towards him, right? Like, I think Oda likes the idea of that Loki, despite being hated by everybody and wanting to be loved, he ultimately chooses to reject that in favor of protecting his father, who he loved, his legacy, right? I think Oda likes all that. So to create that storyline, Oda, I think, sometimes cuts some corners in the process, kind of like Gabon acting like he doesn't know the truth, or Shanks acting like they don't know the truth. Like, that's just an example. I don't even know if that's a specific thing that you're thinking of, but there's so many little things, right? Like, where you kind of just got to be like, okay, this doesn't logically 100% make sense, but Oda just needs to make it work for the story, so you run with it. And I think Oda kind of gets a pass lots of the time because, like, the scenes that he creates can be really strong, so that kind of overshadows the plot questions that we had beforehand. So, like, a common one that is kind of funny is, like, Odin, for example, when he was defeated and put in prison, they let him keep his swords in prison. And he handed his swords to Toki, which is fucking insane. It is genuine. One, that he was able to, like, talk to Toki while he was in prison, right? And two, that he had his swords on him and was able to hand his swords to Toki. That is absolutely fucking insane. People don't talk about that as much because, like, the very next scene is Odin boiling, right? So it's kind of like, what did Oda want to do in the grand scheme of things? Like, he wanted the father, Odin, to go out with some sort of noble sacrifice, so the boiling scene. And he wanted Odin to be able to, like, pass on his legacy to his kids, like Momonosuke, Hiyori. He wanted to hand the swords down to them, right? So ultimately, Oda probably at some point realized, like, after Odin's been defeated, he's like, oh, wait, I need to write in a moment where Odin passes off the swords. So even though it's nonsensical, Odin, for some reason, still has his swords in jail and is actually allowed to get a visitor from, like, a visitation from Toki and hand her the swords because it needs to be passed on, right? And Oda probably forgot which point when Oda was planning out the whole backstory, he probably forgot that detail, like, okay, wait, when am I going to have Odin pass on the swords, right? So that's a crucial little detail that seems illogical because it is illogical, but readers ultimately forget that because the next scene is the boiling scene, and that's so strong and dramatic and well done that you kind of, like, ignore kind of the stupidity before that, which is like, why didn't Odin just break out of jail? The boiling scene is unnecessary. Why didn't he break out of jail? Hell, why didn't Toki just send him a year into the future or some shit when she visited him in jail? You know, like, there's a lot of things that could have been done. But ultimately, there's a more dramatic storyline that Oda wants to go for, and, you know, it's just the way it is. Mine and everyone's reaction when Imu first got revealed, I think everybody thought it was a really, really cool scene, but here's the thing. From what I recall, and you can actually, I think this is actually very true, because you can check people's, like, top 30 lists and stuff in the year or two after Imu was revealed. People did not immediately think that's the final villain of the story. People did not immediately think that, because you got to remember, up to that point in the story, overwhelming evidence suggested that Blackbeard is going to be the final villain. Overwhelming evidence, and people had kind of penciled that in, and Oda had really, really built the story so far to be about defeating the Yonko and the world government, right? We didn't even think the Celestial Dragons have strong fighters, period. Doflamingo was like an outlier to us. We didn't know the Gorosei were strong. We didn't know about God's Knights. God's Knights had never been mentioned, okay? So when Imu was introduced, and it's like, oh shit, there's, like, somebody that's, like, the god of the world or whatever, or, like, or not the god of the world. There's somebody that's sitting on the throne and is, like, the king of the world. nobody really knows how to take it other than, whoa, this is really cool. Who is this character being revealed? There were some jokes about like, oh, is this going to be One Piece's Kaguya and stuff like that. But by and large, the majority of people didn't immediately assume that Imu is going to be really powerful. And a lot of people didn't assume that Imu is going to be the final villain. It was just kind of like, okay, this is a new element that's really interesting that Oda's introducing. And so there is a face, a silhouetted face, but a face behind the world government, a shadowy figure. But you got to keep in mind, like, in general, up till this point, the thing that had been really established for us was that the Marines are the military arm of the world government. There's nobody else really strong in the world government, right? All the notion that celestial dragons actually have a really powerful fighting force, that's all post-Wano. I think largely because Oda didn't want to distract from the Wano storyline, because the Wano storyline, partly what makes it really dramatic is that it feels like the battle that's happening right there really is kind of like representative of the highest level of the world, right? Because Kaido is going into Wano, supposedly he's hyped up as supposedly the strongest creature in the world. Big Mom, a Yonko, also hyped up as this like crazy monster or whatever. So Oda wants the Wano conflict to feel as dramatic as possible, right? It feels like this is it. Like this is the big like this is the heroes finally touching the top of the ladder, basically. Like that's the fight that's going on here. And then if you notice right after Wano, the next arc, Egghead, that's all about kind of like pulling back the curtain and being like, all right, now we dealt with who was supposedly the strongest pirate, right? But now we're going to get into like really unmasking things. And actually that dude, Imu, is basically God. The Gorosei are all actually crazy strong and like admiral level characters. And they've got like this militia, the God's Knights, that you just haven't heard about so far. But Shanks' family is apparently them and everything like that. And basically that's when the world government hype really began. When Imu was first introduced, it was exciting in terms of a reveal and it raised a lot of questions and mysteries, but it wasn't like a crazy impactful moment like where we were just like, holy shit, this is the end game boss. This is like the big bad of the story, because it was just too little to go off of right then. Lastly, have I played or plan on playing Elden Ring yet? I'll be playing Elden Ring in the new year, guaranteed. I've carved out time. I'm going to have a lot more free time starting next year. So we're doing some scheduling changes basically with how we run the channel. Let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Tiptio Treviso, thanks to 2. People in the One Piece fandom can't describe Imu even now. Yeah, I mean, we don't really know exactly what Imu looks like. Elijah Petty, thanks to 2. Will Usopp remove Harold's sword in Jarl's head? Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, that could be a good... I think there's a lot of ways that Usopp could contribute here, but maybe that's one way. Ryan Dufour, thanks for the 5. Do you think One Piece has a place in the classroom? I think the long-term dramatic storytelling could be taught in lectures. I definitely think it could. From what I recall... Look, from what I recall in English classes growing up and everything like that, and also from... I took some college lit. I think I took like 1 or 2 college literature classes. I think I took a 1. From what I recall, I think it'd be really, really cool for One Piece to be taught in classrooms, for sure. Obviously, I'm biased. But I also think that One Piece is... I think it'd be... Yeah, that's probably its biggest strength. Like showing like really amazing long-form storytelling and everything. But I also don't think that classes lean towards teaching that sort of thing. They aim to more so give you singular books that really are representative of like a certain style or era of writing, right? So I don't think One Piece would really fall under that. Like it's kind of the same reason that classrooms probably would never teach like Brandon Sanderson's books, right? Like even though people love them for long-term long running fantasy and everything and world building, it doesn't really fall into the category like English classes want you to read like To Kill a Mockingbird or something like that to like and like or you know Catch-22 or Great Gatsby, right? Like there's a specific goal. Like when you're reading Catch-22, it's to understand that style of writing, right? Or a certain character study or something like that, right? Or if you're reading Something like Lord of the Flies, right? A lot of it is about the themes and being able to dissect themes and symbolism and metaphors and everything like that, right? And it's not that One Piece doesn't have all of those things, but ultimately there's lots of books that are going to do character studies much better, or like much more focused, like a certain style of writing. Like we had to read Kafka, right? Like the Metamorphosis, right? And that was introducing us to, what's that style of writing? What's that style of writing? Is that postmodern? What is that postmodern? Was Kafka postmodern? No. He was rooted in modernism. My bad. But it does teach you Kafka-esque, like what Kafka-esque writing is like. I actually didn't like the Metamorphosis, but then later on in life, I randomly went to read another Kafka book, which was The Trial, and I actually really liked that. I used to read a lot more. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, like One Piece's strength is ultimately like long-form storytelling, right? And a classroom's just never going to assign like an 1,100 chapter story for kids to read. Patrick Malone, thanks for the 5. Odds that Harold gets the special fruit but is killed, which is why the world government has to go find it. Harold gets it. That would be crazy. Grizzly Adam, I don't know. I don't think that happens, personally. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 10. Abyss-powered Blackbeard pirates are perfectly suitable final opponents for every Strahd except Monster Trio. Blackbeard can dominate some of the top-tier side characters for Zoro and Sanji to fight. I see that angle. I think just going with the Seraphim is an easier route at that point. I still lean towards Blackbeard pirates Blackbeard gets his hands on the Seraphim, and I think that line, like, that covers a lot of the potential matchups for the Straw Hats right there, personally. JWP176. Oh, shit. Thanks for gifting 5 memberships, man. Everybody say thanks in chat to JWP, as usual, for gifting so many memberships to everybody in chat, and I really appreciate it on my end, of course, too, man. Shouts in the chat to JWP. W's in the chat for JWP. Also, let's get stream likes up to 150 real quick. So JWP says, Oil Morgeman, any thoughts on how bad will end? Or maybe Elbaf. Elbaf will end. Any chance this is Luffy's only time meeting Imu? If Imu is not the final villain, I think that this would be the arc where Luffy gets his longest interactions with Imu. But yeah, I feel like Elbaf will end with them basically driving the giants out, like driving the bad guys out of Elbaf and everything like that. I low-key wouldn't be surprised if it also could end, though, with the Atom Tree being destroyed by Loki, but this time, like, deliberately destroyed, like everybody's on board with it because it just needs to be destroyed for some reason. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my thought. Elijah Petty, thanks for, oh shit. Yeah, how Elbaf will end. I got you, man. I figured it out. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Ragnar is a homie from the Void Sentry, most likely wielded by the sun god Nika. This would explain why Loki believes himself to be the new sun god. Homie from the Void Sentry. So somebody with the soul fruit put their soul inside Ragnar. The thing is, okay, so I don't know about that because, like, the way the soul fruit works, it gives power, like, it gives life to things, but it doesn't give power to things, right? So, like, Big Mom gave life to a fireball, so now it's like a living fireball. Big Mom gave life to a thundercloud, so now it's a living thundercloud. If Ragnar's just a hammer, then giving life to that hammer would not also give it lightning powers, you know what I mean? So I feel like it's got to have some other property. Rondadon11, thanks for the 10. Smorge, I ordered my poster. The deal was #awesome. Speak of the devil. All right, everybody, listen up. Listen up, because this is the most important news that you're going to hear all evening. So, because I know that all of you are looking at the beautiful, beautiful posters behind me, I just wanted to let you know that you all can get them too for a limited time. You can buy 2 posters, get any 4. Buy any 2 posters, get any 4. And we have all the posters we've ever made in these collections available to get. Everything. The Boss poster collection with new additions such as Shamrock, Garling, Dami Reversi Rocks, which by the way, that can only be gotten in this December. After this December, this Dami Reversi Rocks gone forever. Skypiea version of Going Merry, also after this December, gone forever. But we got a lot of posters here. Dami Reversi Rocks, Shamrock, Garling, all of the previous boss posters. The legendary ships with new additions like Aces Striker, Maxim, the Puffing Tom, my personal favorite from the new ones that came out this month. And then, of course, the classic Island posters with all of the versions from the past available. You can buy any 2 posters from any collections that you want and get any for free. You can mix and match however you want. You basically get 6 posters for the price of 2. This is the greatest deal in history. This is the biggest, this is the most insane deal that we've ever done. Buy 2, get 4. It is only this month. Get your posters now. I'm gonna link it for you all. This is the craziest holiday mega deal you will ever find anywhere. If you want to gift somebody you know One Piece posters, if you just want to decorate your wall with One Piece posters, if you want to fill out your collections of things that you've had in the past, just look at this vibrant display of all these different One Piece posters that we have that you're not going to find in this style literally anywhere else. Yeah, let me just link that for y'all. Let me link that for y'all. Yeah, buy 2, get any 4 for free. All right, continuing on. JWP, thanks for the 5. The autocorrect. Oh, you meant to say lol hi Morge, man, and how Elbaf will end. Yeah, I think Elbaf will end with... I don't think everyone's going to get one-on-one fights. I do think that characters... I think Usopp will get a good fight. I think Zoro and Sanji will get something, and I think Luffy will get something like he always does. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like against Dami Reversi'd Loki or something, or vice versa. It'd be crazy if Luffy got Dami Reversi'd, but I feel like the Nika fruit would stop that. If you really want to hear how I think it'll end, I think that Imu will be driven back thanks to Brook's music. That's my prediction. I think Imu will be driven back thanks to Brook's music, simply because I think that's why Oda wrote in the past connection between Brook and Gunko, to give that sort of out. The Straughts are clearly not ready to defeat Imu yet, right? So that can't happen, but Imu needs to be dealt with. He needs to be sent home somehow. Music tends to affect the soul in One Piece. That's why Brook is the Soul King. So Brook being able to drive Imu out of Gunko's body with music, I think makes a lot of sense. So that's the exact ending to Elbaf that I feel like will happen. But how the fights will play out is hard to guess. I think that Elbaf could play out in the next 30 chapters, though. I think that is actually very, very realistic. I think after this flashback ends, I think we could get 30-ish chapters to end out Elbaf. If that sounds like too little, keep in mind that everything that happened before the flashback began, and a lot has happened, right? Everything that happened before the flashback began was like 25 chapters, right? So, I wouldn't be surprised if the flashback was like the halfway point. If you look historically throughout One Piece, after flashback ends, like, keep in mind, like, Enies Lobby, right? After the flashback ended, we had 30 chapters. After Robin's flashback ended, it was 30 chapters left of Enies Lobby, and the story wrapped, right? After the flashback ends in, Skypiea's flashback comes very late. But, like, yeah, you go through a lot of One Piece arcs. Like, after Fishman Island, the flashback wraps, then we get all the fights and the story closes. After Law's flashback ends in Dressrosa, we get about 30 chapters, I want to say, and then the arc closes. Yeah, like, it's pretty consistent. I'd say Wano's the big exception, because Oda had, like, the flashback ended, but we were just getting started, because we had so much more to go. I would say the quick difference with Wano is that we also had a lot more setup. That we had a way bigger cast of characters. We still needed to get to the island, right? So there's a lot of things that still had to happen. Whereas here, the fight's happening. Like, the fight's already taking place. We're getting the flashback, and all that's happening is now the Monster Tree and Loki are going to get upstairs too. So I think 30 chapters is a realistic possibility. Continuing on. Mr. MMF2, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 38 months. Yo, Morjesi, your last 5 videos were fire. Glad to see you back on forum. What do you think about the Chekhov's gun of Emu controlling the shallow contract? Some people have talked about, like, how does that affect Shanks? Like, did Shanks get his arm cut off on purpose and things like that? Also, thank you for the compliment on the last several videos. I'll say this. I think 2 of the better analysis videos that I've done have been... I think the Rocks and Herald one, in my opinion, was very good. And I think the Rocks one, the solo Rocks one, I think could have been better because, you know, sometimes a video needs another, a little bit more polishing. So the solo Rocks analysis that I did on his death, I think that video was a bit longer than it needed for sure, and it could have been, parts could have been edited down. The Rocks and Herald video that I did recently is one of my favorite analysis videos that I've done. Unfortunately, some videos don't perform as well simply because people aren't as interested in the character. So, like, I was hoping that this would help people appreciate Herald a bit more, and everybody who watched the video seems to have a lot of very positive, be very positive in terms of the reception to the video and the points that I made about Herald. But the video's viewership itself wasn't the highest because I figure Herald's maybe just not the most exciting character for people to want to talk about or want to watch a video about. So it is what it is. I wish more people watch that one, but it is a strong analysis video if you want to check out the Rocks and Herald one. And then the last video that I just did, Joyboy sent the One Piece of the Future. I was skeptical if people would find that, like, how to explain this? So sometimes I have a theory and I drop the theory and I'm really excited to see what people think. And a lot of people are like, just from seeing the title alone, people are like, this is stupid. And so I was worried that this would be another one of those where I'm like, are people going to see the title and then just call it a stupid theory? But I was pleasantly surprised to see, like, because sometimes you'll see a title that makes very little sense. Okay. So for example, I did a video about, like, how I think that I think Shanks, Dragon, and Blackbeard will be involved in Emu's defeat. Okay, I think all 3 of those... Maybe it's not just them, maybe it's a lot more, maybe Luffy's in there too, like, if you think it's the final villain, then of course Luffy's in there. But I did think that Shanks, Dragon, and Blackbeard are all individually going to be involved in Emu's defeat. A lot of people, right off the bat, their comment is just like, this is a stupid idea. So sometimes people just see a title and they're like, this is stupid. And then maybe the video doesn't do that much to convince them, right? So then that's on me. I was worried that this would be a video that tanked because people would see the title and just be like, this is stupid. But it turns out that it's a title that when people see it, a lot of people are just like, I just read the title and oh my god, it makes so much sense. So that was fun to see. So that video, obviously, I'm happy that that's doing well. Limu, thanks for the 10. Wonder if the Devil Fruit has a power that literally brings mischief, chaos, and destruction, on brand for Loki. The lightning strike could be manufactured bad luck that struck Elbaf, kind of like an undead unluck. Oh yeah, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, that could be really cool. I mean, it's a crazy big lightning strike though. Lightning isn't that big, but like it's like covers mountain ranges and stuff. But maybe it's possible. Maybe that's possible. I also want to check out how Undead Unluck ended. I was enjoying that series for a while and then I took a break just reading it. Kaido, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for a month, man. Who do you think will land the final blow on Herald? I thought it'd be Loki, but it seems like he doesn't know how to get past immortality yet. It's implied that Loki figured it out based on his conversation with Gaban. Because at the moment it seems like none of the trio, Shanks, Gaban, and Loki, maybe Shanks and Gaban know how, but they just didn't use that technique when they first attacked Herald, but that wouldn't make sense because Shanks knows about the immortality. So maybe it's a technique that they all figure out over the course of this battle. Miss Mdaf122193, thanks for the 10. After this chapter and Gunko's memories also being replaced, I think Venus Juro was a noble from Wano who made a similar deal with Emu and got his name and memory changed. That would be kind of crazy if all the Gorosei are like different kings from different eras who agreed to serve Emu and then basically got turned into his puppets. That would be really, really crazy. I don't like that because then that makes me feel almost bad for Saturn, you know? Justin, thanks for the 2. Harold did take his friend's warning to heart. Too little too late, though. Too little, too late. Fantas Uwoos, thanks for bringing Yonko to your room for 7 months. Harold's action is a treat to watch, so brutal. Yeah, I really want to see Harold fight. Like, in the past, we've seen him fight Rox, and Rox is kind of like a small character, but it's cool to see him fighting, like, other giant-sized characters and just, like, wrecking through them. Because Harold, by all accounts, should be in contention, at the very least, for strongest character in the world, normally. And with the buff, like, with the Emu buff, he's got me, like, in theory, he would be it, right? Besides Emu himself. Zolden, thanks for the 10. You think Oda is intentionally trying to make us question if the fruit is Luffy's fruit or an Elbaf one? Because then I feel like the reveal of it being just Luffy's might be disappointing. I think Oda's intentional. I think Oda might be being intentional about it. I do wonder why they think it'll be the end of the world if Loki eats it, because it's like, Luffy's fruit can't really do that, as far as we know, right? So, I don't know. I think we're going to have to wait like 2 weeks to find out. Although, sometimes the first chapter of the new year leaks a week early. Yeah, so the thing that... Okay, I also want to ask this. I loved Undead Unluck. Yeah, I stopped after there was some arc where I took a break after... Or maybe I'd caught up. I think I might have caught up. I think that's what happened. And then I took a break, and then I didn't really get back into it. Yeah, as for the earlier question about if Harold is... Who lands the finishing blow on Harold, I think it'll be Loki. I'm curious about Shanks. Because I'm very, very curious about Shanks, because I did feel like Shanks is... supposed to be already have reached his peak by the time he loses his arm. Because then, doesn't this complicate, like... Because then the whole Mihawk thing becomes a discussion again, right? Because that's... I don't know. It definitely... I don't know. Because it's implied that Mihawk didn't fight Shanks after Shanks lost his arm. I'm not saying that Shanks... I don't know. Yeah, they've been wanting to come out. Zolden, thanks for the 10. You think... Oh, no, we covered this. Sorry. Ariango Kale. Sorry if I messed up the name. Hey, Morge, I made up a One Piece power scaling site. Don't want to plug it here unless it's cool, but I think Stream might like it. It's still a work in progress, so looking for feedback. Yeah, sure. Just tell us what it is. That sounds fun. What if Mihawk didn't have his black blade yet? No, that's all good. Like, because it's possible Mihawk's not in his prime yet either. But then the thing that it calls into question more so is like... Because Mihawk's biggest feat that we know of is defeating Shanks, right? So, in a sword duel. So, that's the bigger problem. It's not like Mihawk obviously could have gotten stronger afterwards anyway. If they both just got stronger and continued on. But the problem is that Shanks is like way more stuff that he does afterwards. So, for example, supposedly, right, to our knowledge, defeating Loki, right? Like clashing with Kaido, like Whitebeard, Akainu, the Green Bull incident. Like, there's a lot of stuff that Shanks does later on. So that's the tricky thing. Obviously, the one shot of Kid just recently. Whereas with Mihawk, the thing that Mihawk could always hang his hat on, which he literally has a hat, the thing he could always hang his hat on is like, well, everything that Shanks does is Mihawk gas because Mihawk defeated Shanks in a duel. But that carries a lot less weight if this was back when Shanks was a lot weaker. Because regardless if Mihawk got stronger later on, if his strongest feat and what he scales to now, like what we know he scales to now, goes down. The flip side is he obviously has the title World's Strongest Swordsman still, but he never fought Shanks again after this, so that was never really tested because Mihawk didn't want to fight somebody with one arm. The only thing we can really go off after that is, I think it's still what's still being held true is the Vivre Card thing, right? So I'm not gonna like go deep into trying to like rehash the whole Mihawk Shanks thing, but I do think it's less concrete now, personally. Because there's still the Vivre Card that says that Mihawk is the strongest swordsman in title and in reality, right? So it's pretty cut and dry about that. But Vivre cards are very tenuous in that Vivre cards, as we've seen historically, often end up being corrected or turned out they didn't actually have correct information and stuff like that, right? So that's the thing. I think Mihawk's status now hinges on this Vivre card, because unless it's shown that Shanks is in his prime here, because we could find that out next chapter, you know? Up on Pirate Folk, people are shitting on Shanks for supposedly only saving Luffy to get rid of Emu's Mark Law. But that doesn't make sense, because couldn't he just get rid of the mark anytime he wants? Can he just cut off his arm whenever? I don't know if people are joking or not, though. Every stream we slip into this. This time I brought it up. This time I brought it up myself, right? This time I brought it up myself just because I'm curious. I mean, the thing is, so like, we know for a fact right now that Mihawk is not the world's strongest swordsman in the world right now, right? There's no chance Mihawk is the world's strongest swordsman right now. That is very obviously Harold, right? I guess you could say strongest sword. Harold's a giant, so maybe he doesn't fall into the category of swordsman, I guess. It's tricky because, like, fishmen, like, Hyozo's referred to as a swordsman, not a swords fishman or whatever. So, like, generally other races are still referred to, it seems like, as swordsmen if they wield a sword. So it depends how you view it. But we know Mihawk's not the world's strongest swordsman till Harold dies, right? And then after that, title probably goes to Mihawk. I don't know if people on Pirate Folk are hating or not, or just joking, because he can remove the arm whenever, right? Harold plus Emu power-up? No, just Harold by him. He wouldn't need the Emu power-up. I mean, I guess Harold has the Emu power-up, but even if the Emu power-up was removed and stuff, like, Harold is still going to be stronger than... If we assume that Mihawk right now is a bit stronger than Shanks right now, right, then Harold, even without the power-up, is definitely above those two, you know? Prime, we can have a different discussion, like Shanks today versus Harold, you know? But it appears, right? I guess we need to wait till next chapter. If it turns out that Shanks is comparably strong to how he is today, then it's a different discussion, right? Then this doesn't affect Mihawk's anything or whatever. But if it appears that Shanks isn't really... If he's still got some ways to go before he reaches his current strength, then obviously both Shanks and Mihawk are clearly behind Harold, even regardless of the Emu power-up. %40 of people genuinely believing that Shanks was a bum. You can't use Conqueror's Hockey against yourself. How would he remove his own arm without it regenerating? But then how did the Sea King remove it? What? I don't think he doesn't have regeneration either, right? It's explained that that's the next level contract. The recent chapter is just a Mihawk upscale? Wait, how? Oh, it is too early to tell. If it is a drawn-out fight against a powered-up Herald, that upscales both Shanks and Mihawk. I think it depends, because, like, there's Loki, Shanks, and Gaban in there. And I have a feeling it looks like Loki's actually going to be the heavy hitter of the squad. So it's going to be... Unless Shanks is, like, the star of the show, it would be a downscale, you know? Are we allowed to link in here? Yeah, if you want, or just tell me the. Are you talking about the power scaling site? Just tell me the name of the power scaling site. Ursula, thanks for the 10. If we were talking about Shanks and Mihawk, I'd like to point out that when Oda introduced one-on-one rivals, he used to make them the same height, or the stronger of the two is 1 centimeter taller. See Zoro and Sanji. Yeah, and I mean, I subscribe to that. Look, I did subscribe to that too. You guys know that for a long time I was like, I think if I had to make a call, Shanks more likely greater than Mihawk. And the height thing was like a thing that I personally felt is like a real thing, but people would always make fun of the height thing when it came up because people would be like, oh, so like Whitebeard's way taller than Roger, so you think Whitebeard's like now we're height scaling and stuff like that. So like anytime you bring up the height scaling, I feel like it devolved into something kind of just making fun of the concept, whereas like I didn't know if that was fair because I felt like I think Oda does it more deliberately with certain characters, right? It's not like every character that's a rival he draws similar heights, but I did feel like there is a pattern where when there are two rivals and Oda does deliberately draw them at almost exactly the same height, then when that is the situation, then Oda tends to make one just 1 centimeter taller, and that's typically the stronger one. So I thought that is soft evidence of the Shanks Mihawk thing, but I personally never brought that up because I was just like, when you bring that up, people just like get really like oh my god, we're scaling by height, so now the tallest person is just the strongest, yada yada. I'm like, I don't think like that's not the point that people are saying. It's just like trying to draw some patterns. It's obviously not like in every one of these situations. It's more so the situations where Oda seems to actually deliberately try to make there be a 1 centimeter gap, and that does seem to be deliberate in some situations, but it's just, I'm aware of that. I don't think that I can recall I've ever brought that up as an argument for Shanks in the past because I just know the derision that can be met with. So I leave that out, but to me that does seem like it could potentially have been a sign. But nowadays, again, I'm on the Mihawk train, but I am questioning the Mihawk train a little bit because from my perspective, the Mihawk train now hinges entirely on a Vivre Card information because actually, no, you know what? Let me clarify. If next chapter it is shown that Shanks is not yet at his peak, then Mihawk's claim is based on Vivre Card information. Okay? If it's shown next chapter that Shanks is capable of doing all the stuff that he can do today, right? He, it seems like he's basically the same level as he is right now, then Mihawk still looks good. Everything's good. So don't want to get too ahead of myself right here, right? At the moment, nothing is hurting Mihawk's claim just yet clearly. But next chapter, if it seems like this really is young Shanks and not yet at his peak, then that does suddenly put Mihawk's situation into greater jeopardy because now it's just his greatest feat is defeating a weaker version of Shanks, right? So it's like now we're just holding on to the Vivre Card information, Beelzinosk says they can't fight after this. Maybe they did. I thought it was implied that Mihawk no longer seeked Shanks out for duels after Shanks lost his arm. I thought that was the implication. Maybe they did fight after this. Who knows? Let's get stream likes up to 150. Tiptio says it's based on the Vivre Card. Then why isn't how he talks to Shanks good enough established of him being stronger than Shanks? He says that he doesn't want to... Their conversation actually makes things more vague because Shanks asks if he wants to settle things, which is not what you'd say to somebody that's already beaten you, right? So we don't really want to get into that, right? You want to stick to the title. The title is cleaner because then Mihawk's response is that he doesn't want to fight someone with one arm, right? So Mihawk's response doesn't indicate that it pretty much indicates that he's giving a reason for not wanting to fight Shanks, right? it's not quite the same as basically, like, I think the title is the cleanest thing, because their conversation doesn't actually seem to imply, if you were to read it blind, right, with no knowledge of who's the world's strongest, whatever, then it sounds like basically, do you want to settle things, i.e., unfinished business, we have to determine something. The other guy says, why would I want to fight somebody who only has one arm? I don't know if that's his exact quote or something like that. But the other guy basically is like, I don't want to fight somebody who is now handicapped, from his perception, handicapped, right? But if in actuality Shanks is a lot stronger now than he was before when he had 2 arms, then Mihawk's perception is incorrect. Mihawk also had an excuse to avoid Shanks and Marineford. The man doesn't want to mess with him. I think they're friends too, you know? I don't know. I'm not trying to get too into... I'm just saying that, like, look, we got to be... New information, right? To me, it's sliding scale, new information, right? I'm good with Mihawk. Still got Mihawk above Shanks. If next chapter it's established that Shanks is not as strong as he is later on in time, like modern day, and Mihawk beat a much weaker version of Shanks, then all we've got is the Vivre Card. And Vivre Cards are just not the... Like, they're just so sketchy because they're frequently retconned and frequently have inaccurate information. So that's the tricky thing. And the Vivre Cards are not written by Oda, but they are approved by Oda, but clearly subject to change based on what he writes in the manga. Why do I keep saying Mihawk beats Shanks? Because, I mean, he's got the title and Shanks doesn't, right? Is it a 2-week break? Okay, so here's what happens at the end of the year every year to my memory. And I fucking hate that this happens, okay? So, to my memory, what normally occurs is basically we get the last chapter of the year. In this case, it would be 1169, okay? And then what happens is that there's supposed to be a 1-week break. I think it's a Shonen Jump break. And then I think Oda's supposed to put out a chapter and then another break, okay? So it's like last chapter of the year, break, new chapter, break, new chapter, okay? I think that's what's supposed to happen. But what very frequently actually happens at the end of the year is that we get the last chapter of the year, right? Then there's supposed to be a break and then a chapter, but for whatever reason, this specific chapter, and it's always this chapter, it leaks early. I don't know why it always happens. It's like the first chapter of the year always seems to leak early. Usually when there's a break, there's just a break, right? Like we wait for the next chapter, right? But for whatever fucking reason, I swear, the first chapter of the year leaks a week early. And so what that creates is we get 1169, then 1170 will leak early for us, so TCB or whoever will put it up. So we'll probably get that next Friday or next Saturday or whatever, maybe next Thursday, who knows. And then we'll actually have 2 weeks of no One Piece. That's what I recall. My memory might be a little bit fuzzy, but I think that that's frequently what happens, which is that first chapter of the year leaks early, resulting in 2 straight weeks of no One Piece. Not a single break week, but 2 break weeks for One Piece, which is just like really, really not fun. Also, I feel like, look, obviously you guys are not going to care about this. I'll just mention it here. It's not a big deal or whatever, but as a content creator for One Piece, I always dread the beginning of the next year. Not dread, but like the beginning of the next year is always like rough with that One Piece double break that often happens because basically like it's 2 weeks of no One Piece, and I think I like to try to take 1 week off of doing YouTube content creation, right? So I generally try to do that like the last week of December. So as I told you guys, there will be no video going up on the 30th. There'll be a video next week, 23rd, but on the 30th, that Tuesday, there'll be no video. So usually I think I basically start the year off screwing my channel over a little bit because I take my mini little week off or whatever, and then there's usually 2 weeks of no One Piece that follow that, which means that then I'm having to work to create content based off of what we have, which is obviously like there's like Oda's done month-long 3-week-long breaks and everything, but it's a combination of me taking a break from the channel in general for a week and then 2 weeks of no chapters that it's always like, okay, this is going to be a little bit of a bump in the road for the channel. So that's all it is. I know you guys don't care about that stuff. That's okay. That's not like me. This is just me sharing, just me sharing. Title scalers. Yeah, I think that's what, I don't know. They say titles could create a false sense of superiority. I don't know. Tiptio says 17-year-old Shanks could mimic Divine Departure when no other Roger Pirate could do that. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, I would not be surprised if next chapter we're able to see that'll be more so the action chapter, and then we can kind of gauge like just how strong Shanks is, and maybe he is just as strong as he is right now. King AP says then take break another week. No, because it's like the world doesn't move according to the YouTube or One Piece schedule. So like, I want to see family and like be able to enjoy Christmas Eve, Christmas and stuff with everybody else who's getting their time off during that period of time, right? So like, I could do normal stuff and work throughout Christmas Eve and Christmas, and then be like, well, I'll take my break next week, but that doesn't work that doesn't feel that good, So, yeah, like you are technically right. Like no one is forcing me to do that. That's a preference. I would like to spend that week with, other people who are taking time off, and getting some time off during that time. So like, we're going to do the road trip tomorrow. So we're going to go see my family. It's a 2-day road trip. So we're going to go see my family and then obviously friends and everything like that. So I do try to keep that week for, just personal stuff. Yamato can do Thunder Bagua. I guess she's Kaido level just because of that. I don't think that's what Tiptio Treviso is saying. Oh wait, he can do Divine Departure. Oh wait, I guess Tiptio is saying that. I thought you were just saying that Shanks is strong. But I didn't think that you were saying that he's as strong as Roger. If Shanks is as strong as Roger today, you know what? Maybe that's a possibility. We can throw that in the realm of possibility or whatever. But I don't think Shanks at like 17 was as strong as Roger. Shanks is a ginger, so he's obviously inferior to Mihawk. Oh, he meant take a 2-week break. Oh, take a 2-week break. That's not good for the channel. You can't do that for YouTube. Again, I never want to make YouTube sound like, oh, it's like a crazy hard job. There are a million harder jobs. Genuinely, plenty of way harder jobs. But if I were to say one disadvantage of YouTube is that unlike most traditional jobs, you can't, if you take a break, it directly affects the channel, right? So like even taking a 1-week break is generally not, like taking a break off doing a video or whatever, that's generally not a good idea. I mean, you guys know, like, I don't know, I guess the last time that we didn't put out a Tuesday video from the channel would have been this time last year, right? So we don't really do that just because it's just not, you just don't do that, right? It's you got to keep feeding YouTube what it is accustomed to. Otherwise, it has negative repercussions. But you kind of just accept that for, the start of the year. It's just, you got to take a break at some point. So 1 week is all good. How old is Shanks in this flashback? 25. This is one thing that's really frustrating for me in One Piece, which is just like the age thing, which is like, how do I say this? The age thing is difficult because, like, there's no way to properly, like, on the one hand, our protagonists are so young and are about to hit their prime, but then for everybody in previous generations, it's almost like you can't read anything that happened in the past without then having, like, this question mark of, like, okay, but how strong are they, like, relative to their best or whatever, because the age is just always going to be this vague component. And it's down to the point that, like, fucking Roger and Garp were 39 and 40 years old in the God Valley flashback. Like, that's the same age that Shanks is today, right? And I think everyone would say that Shanks is in his prime today. It's established that Whitebeard, if you are to believe that magazine, Whitebeard reached his prime at age 38. But then, like, everything's vague, so it's just like, well, are Roger and Garp at their prime at age 39, age 40? Like, you could technically say no. I mean, we don't know for sure. We have no way of confirming for sure. So it's kind of frustrating, because it's just like, it's cool to go back and see all of the battles in the past and everything like that, but then there's always this out, which is like, well, none of this means anything, because, like, this character doesn't reach his prime till he's, like, 43 years old, and that character doesn't reach their prime till they're 35 years old. Like, you know? Fucking NBA primes are less annoying to debate with. Yeah, because at least with NBA, we get to see all of their data across the years and everything like that. Luffy will still needs time to hit Joy Boy level. It's crazy he'll be that strong at 20. You know what's funny, though? Is, like, it's actually, in the context of the One Piece world, it's crazy that Luffy will reach that level of strength at age 20. But in the context of real life, like, One Piece is kind of the reverse of real life, in that, like, Oda still treats these dudes who are, like, in their late 30s or 40s as, like, their youth. It's so funny. Like, watch how Oda portrays the fucking Roger Pirates during that whole flashback, right? The Roger Pirates are, like, treated as, like, a bunch of young, cool, like, immature bachelors or whatever. And it's like, Roger's fucking 40 years old. Like, this is not, like, some youth traveling the seas. This is, like, a fucking, in any other series, this is, like, the grown-ass, wise figure. Like, this guy's supposed to be fucking, like, Kakashi or something like, no, way older than Kakashi. Like, these guys are supposed to be old and mature at this point, but Oda treats it as, like, youth, your late 30s, early 40s. And it's like, what is this guy on? So Luffy looks like a baby in comparison to that. In the real world, once you're like 39, 40 or whatever, you are lucky if you're still an athlete, you know? Like, there's freaks like LeBron or Djokovic who are still competing at 39, 40 and everything, and are still really, really fucking good, like top 10, LeBron debatably or whatever, but they're still way past their primes. The primes were in, like, their late 20s or maybe 30 or something like that, right? Luffy is actually more believable in that in a lot of sports, like, how to say this? I think in a lot of sports, I think especially, I'll say this, especially single-player sports, right? Single-player sports. Individual sports, right? You can hit your prime really fucking fast in individual sports. Like, Rafael Nadal was arguably at his athletic prime when he was like 20, 21 years old, right? Skill and experience he developed more later, but he was already number 2 in the world, basically, and winning Grand Slams and everything by that age. And he would be number 1 if Roger Federer didn't exist, right? Mike Tyson, he was probably at his peak, like peak at 20 years old. He actually was at his most unstoppable when he was very, very, very young, because that's when, like, he had, like, his athleticism was at its max, his reflexes, because his style was, it's called like a peekaboo boxing style or whatever. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it, but his style was very, very dependent on fast reflexes, fast reactions, like just snap reaction time and movement. All of that at his peak at 20 years old. Prime Mike Tyson is like 20, 21 years old, right? I think team sports, you can't always reach your prime that fast, because with team sports, there's so many more variables. So you need to learn, like, just because you can jump out of the gym or whatever in basketball at age 20, you still need to learn so much in terms of, like, just playing as a team, learning the flow of the game and everything like that, right? But if you get to pure combat or whatever, you have people historically who are in their prime in, like, their early 20s or even at age 20 or something, if you look at, like, a freak of nature like Mike Tyson, right? So like Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, them reaching their primes at that young age in One Piece, it's actually like One Piece is more realistic than a lot of other shonen, because other shonen will have stuff like Naruto, the world's strongest at like age 16 or something like that, or like Deku, the world's strong. Like other shonen tend to get their heroes there as teenagers. One Piece at least took it a little bit further, and it's like he's gonna be like 20 when he's world's strongest, right? And that's semi believable for real world standards. What's unbelievable that Oda does is this bullshit with like characters being like 37. It's like, is he in his prime yet? I don't know. He's still a young man. He's still a little boy. It's like Roger, 39 years old. Garp, 40 years old, fighting a God Valley. It's like, Roger didn't grow a mustache yet, though. So could he still really be in his prime? It's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Basketball prime is like 24 to 29. People are so explosive and insane at that age if they do not get injured. I feel like it's a little bit on the later side, at least, because I think they got to. They're basketball is a sport with like sports that have more elements to them, right? Like basketball, sports that have a lot more elements and variables going around. I think that those sports, it inherently takes longer to reach your prime, because you can be at your athletic prime younger, but in terms of like understanding the game and everything and what you need to do and when to make certain decisions, etc., that can take more time. So like that's why, you know, a lot of the greats, like I think they reach their prime at like LeBron, you could argue his best year was 2018, right? So that's like 30 plus or whatever. I still think Steph Curry 2022 or even Olympics, like I think that range is actually the most complete Steph Curry we've ever had, even if 2016 is the most statistically good season, right? I think that was more so just him catching the league by surprise. I think the most complete Steph Curry's ever been is actually when he's around 30s, right? Early 30s. Jordan, Jordan, it was very late 20s that he's winning his first championship. A lot of people would say his prime is like 93 or something like that, and I think he might have been 30 at that point. Yeah. So I think but I think in in individual sports where there's again, I keep going back to the Mike Tyson example, but that's because it's a simple example, because boxing is a sport with far fewer variables. So like you can create a style that's focused entirely on like your athleticism, reflexes, reactions, and just like hone in on that. And then your prime is going to be the youngest possible, like 20, 21 or whatever. So, it depends on the sport. Antonio, thanks for the 2. Is MJ better than LeBron? My take is basically, I think prime LeBron James is the... Babe, all okay? Okay. No? Okay. I think prime LeBron James is the best basketball player ever. Like, if I were picking in a draft, I'd pick him first. I think Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time in terms of, like, relative to his era and his competition. I think there was a bigger gap between him and the field than LeBron. Although, obviously, there was, like, a big gap between LeBron and the field, too. I think you got to judge, because, like, in general, skill and conditioning and, like, knowledge of the game, etc., is overall increasing over time. So, it's not the most fair comparison. So, like, if you just pick them out of their timelines in a bubble and then, like, we're like it through magic or whatever, and in a vacuum, it's like, who's the better player? I feel like I would go with LeBron. But it's like, well, for what they had during their time, I think that Jordan was more accomplished and more ahead of his field. But I view it as like LeBron is the best player of all time and the second greatest player of all time. Also, you know what's interesting? I think this is really cool. So, you can call it coincidence or whatever, but I feel like there's about a 20-year gap in basketball for whatever reason, just natural progression of like human, like not evolution, but like natural progression of how people optimize for the game or like how generations work or whatever. I think in 20-year intervals, you can kind of track like when the next true GOAT contender shows up. So like when Jordan hit the game, like when Jordan arrived, it was like immediately like, oh shit, this guy might just be the best player ever. And this was before he won rings and everything like that, right? And that was like early mid 80s. I think early mid 80s that Jordan arrived. Then fast forward 20 years, Jordan's retiring the second time. And then 2003, LeBron's arriving, right? So 20 years, right? And then you fast forward another 20 years, and Wembanyama is joining, right? It's really genuinely at about the 20-year mark. I think that's how long it takes for, maybe small sample size, but it does feel like that's how long it takes for, like, when you have somebody who is just so, like, the right combination of, like, genetics and upbringing and everything like that all comes together just, like, percentage probability-wise to, like, make them clearly a step forward in evolution from anything that came before, right? I think that, like, raises the bar, right? And then I think it takes another 20 years for sort of everyone else to catch up, and then there's another sort of just perfect genetically gifted person that now comes along to raise the bar even further. So, I don't know. That's a little theory that I've got. If it happens again in another 20 years, then I think it'll be the truth. Wemby going to be the best? You know the cool thing I like about Wembanyama? I think he will settle the GOAT debate in a way that feels comfortable. Because I think people, like, if he achieves everything that people speculate him to achieve, I think people won't really feel bad putting Jordan and LeBron behind him. Because it's just like, well, look at him. It's fucking unfair, right? It's just like, I think it's, you know what I mean? I think people are more okay with that sort of thing when it's like this freakishly tall, like literal alien, not literal, wrong use of literal, but like this alien type being. It's kind of just like everyone's just cool with it. I think like people are okay with in the future being like, yeah, like obviously I grew up with Jordan, I grew up with LeBron or whatever, but like obviously it's unfair to compare them to Wemby. So, you know, I think that's something cool that could happen. He could bring peace. He could bring balance to the NBA. In the sense that everyone might just be like, okay, yeah, that guy's the best. We don't really have to debate this anymore. And there's nothing to feel shame about. I think with Jordan and LeBron, the tricky thing is like, Jordan's a 2, LeBron's a 3. They're really not that far off. They're both, you know, they're both expected to do a similar thing. Like Jordan, you're expected to be more so scoring, but like it's a lot of like their perimeter inside or like outside coming in players, right? Like drive into the basket, perimeter play, like that's really where they're both operating, right? It's not like Jordan's a guard and LeBron's a center, right? They're wings that are attacking, right? So that's where a lot of the comparisons come in. Because they're similar, but they're different in the sense that Jordan was a more complete scorer with the mid-range and everything, but LeBron does everything else better with obviously the passing, rebounding, other stuff. So that's where it's like the perfect duo to argue about, right? Because like if you got players that are too similar, like Jordan, Kobe, it's just too obvious which one's better, right? Jordan's better. But Jordan, LeBron are similar, but different enough. Like similar in terms of their positions, right? You're not comparing a guard to a center, but different enough that it's obviously like you can't judge them by the same standard. So that's where it gets interesting. It's like, would you rather have LeBron's more complete stat line, or would you rather have like Jordan's like relentless scoring and attacking? That's what's really cool about the two, right? Opposite strengths in many ways. Although LeBron obviously had a lot of Jordan's strengths with the scoring. But then with Wemby, it's just totally different. It's like a fucking center, and it's like the most broken center of all time. The way he plays, it doesn't look visibly similar to Jordan and LeBron. Like with Jordan and LeBron, the other similar stuff was that they were the most athletic players of their time, right? Like Jordan, Air Jordan, his whole thing was like he was faster, could jump higher, do crazier stuff in the air than anybody else. And then LeBron was the same thing for his era, you know? But with Wemby, it's like, well, this guy doesn't have to run and jump. He can just reach his arm out, and it's all okay. Yeah, Wemby could win Defensive Player of the Year every year. He should have won it last year. Anyway, Tom, thanks for the 5, man. Oh, I still got to respond to you on Twitter, man. I saw your message. I got to respond. Who wins, Big Mom versus Fodder Marines with Akainu's Fruit, Mr. Five's Fruit, and Corazon's Fruit? Thanks for the content. Read/watch Kaiji. What? Fodder Marine with Akainu's Fruit, Mr. Five's Fruit, and Corazon? What? Big Mom obviously wins. I don't even understand the question. Akainu's Fruit, Mr. Five's Fruit, and Corazon. Oh, shit. Oh, I see what you're saying. Because she lands in magma, she gets hit by explosives, and she's silenced by Corazon. Ah, I see what you're saying. That's funny. Read/watch Kaiji? Maybe. JP, thanks for the 5. College hoops don't even have the same three-point line. It does take some years for players to master the NBA format alone. That's a really good point. Really, really good point. Bassam Al-Madawi, thanks for the 5. Also, I heard Cooper... I've not been watching NBA at all this year. I think I watched like one game. I need to see the Thunder fail, so as long as they're dominating the NBA, I can't bring myself to watch. But I've heard Cooper Flag has started to become really good. And I thought it was really quiet, because like I'd seen nothing about him. And then I'd assumed that he was bad, because early in the season he wasn't that good. So I was like, okay, he was a bust. But then I saw like a random YouTube short on my feed or something. It's like, we need to talk about Cooper Flag. I clicked it. I was like, oh, they're going to talk about how big of a bust he is or whatever. And then the person's breaking down how he just had like a 40-point game and he's been on like a really good run recently. So is Cooper Flag good now? Bassam Al-Madawi, thanks for the 5. An issue I have with Harold is all the writing flaws around him. Shanks doesn't communicate that he's out of control, and Loki will pay the price for it. I mean, Shanks came to try... Oh. That he's being controlled and everything like that. I mean, let's see next chapter what happens. But I agree that I'd say this whole flashback in general has probably had the most glaring moments of, like, poor communication between characters. It's tricky because, like, this flashback takes place over many, many years and involves so many characters with differing pieces of information and stuff. So, like, there's just naturally more room for there to be holes, I guess. Meek, thanks for the 2. Harold equals Wemby. Jordan LeBron equals Rox and Roger. How would Harold equal Wemby? I guess I get what you're saying. It's like, oh, well, Harold's so much bigger than them or whatever. But in One Piece, that's not an excuse. In One Piece, size is not an excuse. We're past the point where size really matters in One Piece. Like, Rox can fight Harold perfectly fine and they're equal. It doesn't really matter. It's the size of your hockey that matters in One Piece. Oh, they just put him back into his normal position. Now he's all good? That makes sense. Yeah, Wemby literally beat the Thunder in a game bet on him. Yeah, that was really cool. So I watched the highlights of that. I think that is one of the coolest things a player has honestly ever done. Because the Thunder were this unstoppable force, and Wemby was like, he was trying to like make it his year. Like he debuted the season with everyone being like, oh my god, like what's his ceiling? Like his first game just blew everyone's expectations out of the water. And then like he disappeared for some time because of injury. And then everybody's like kind of like just focusing on the Thunder, like, oh, the Thunder are this unstoppable force or whatever. And then he returns in a meaningful game in the NBA Cup to like defeat the Thunder. That is one of the coolest things that a player has done in my memory during the regular season. LeBron is a floor raiser merchant is my take. MJ can ceiling raise better. That is why he's better than LeBron. My view is that like I would always draft LeBron first, prime LeBron, because like if you have just him, you are guaranteed to have basically everything you need for your team to be really good. I'd say that if you have a really good team and then you add Jordan to it, then you're probably guaranteed to beat anyone. Like that's kind of, but I don't think that Jordan on it, because like scoring a lot on your own and having really good individual defense on your own isn't really great for like overall team performance. And we've seen that like a million times throughout NBA history. Like, you know, like that year Kobe was scoring 35 a game or whatever. That didn't do that much for getting them that far in the playoffs, or like I don't even know if they got to the playoffs or whatever. Like it's just inherently the way the game works. But if you've got Jordan as basically like your closer, you've probably got the best closer in NBA history. So it's kind of like, it depends on what you value, I'd say. I would still value LeBron more overall as like the better player because he just brings so much to the table. You could argue that closing in itself is the most important piece of the puzzle, but which is why it's so heavily valued in the NBA. But with LeBron, you basically get like a one-man army to do everything. And he's also a good close. Like, he's good to have the ball in his hands at the end of the game. He's going to make the right decision. It's not necessarily always going to be him scoring. The problem with LeBron is that his impact diminished so much when you have a good first option. Like when D-Wade had good knees, LeBron looked like dog shit. I didn't watch 2011 NBA, so I don't know. But who would win in a one-on-one game, says Henchme. I've heard, and I think LeBron is... from what I've heard, LeBron is actually not that great at one-on-one. I think he was losing to, like, Michael Beasley or something. Like, there's reports that LeBron isn't, like, the best in the world at one-on-one or whatever. So, instinctively, I might even be like LeBron just because in his prime, like, just the size and strength advantage and everything might be difficult for Jordan, but Jordan was really good one-on-one. Like, that's kind of his thing. So, I'd say one-on-one, probably Jordan. Basim El Madawi, thanks to 2. Have you been reading Jujutsu Kaisen Majulo? I'm enjoying it. I've heard Jujutsu Kaisen Majulo is good. Is it better than Jujutsu Kaisen was? I guess it's just tighter storytelling and everything, and, like, a lot of the world building is done. Oh, he's lying? Okay. Yeah, so that's the thing. You never know what people's memories are of stuff. I'm probably going to read Jujutsu Kaisen Majulo. I know a cool fight is going on right now. Oh god, not a GOAT debate, please. Okay, so for me... MJ could never guard LeBron. I mean, like, the way NBA players play one-on-one, they usually limit their dribbles, right? So, like, if you limit LeBron's dribbles, I'm pretty sure that MJ would beat him in one-on-one. The way I viewed the GOAT debate, I view it very simply, which is just like, I don't count anything from, like, the pre-merger, because it's just too complicated. I do view it with the context that players are generally getting better, right? So, like, but when it comes to the GOAT debate, if I'm just comparing career to career, to me it's very simple, which is like, if I'm being fully honest, LeBron is my favorite player. But if I'm being fully honest, if you asked me right now, like, if you gave me 2 pills right now, and it's like, you can go to the NBA, right? And you gave me pill number 1, it's like, you go to the NBA, and you win 6 championships, 6 Finals MVPs, 5 MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, right? And you get all that, right? Like, if that's one pill, and then the other pill is basically like, you get 4 championships. You get close to many champions. You get to the finals 10 times, but you win 4 championships, 4 finals MVPs, 4 MVPs, right? Like, and you become the scoring leader and everything like that, and you play for 20-something years. I would probably take this other one. I think I would take the pill that, like, I think I would pick the career where I am lifting the trophy 6 times, 3 in a row twice, and I'm the MVP, finals MVP for all of them. I also like having the Defensive Player of the Year. Like, to me, that's the most simple and, I guess, objective way to look at it. Like, that takes out my bias towards either player. It's like, what career is actually more impressive? It's like, well, if you gave me the 2 options of the careers, I think I would pick the one where, like, I go to the finals 6 times and I'm winning every single time, and I do it 3 in a row twice. I think I would just pick that. I think I would prefer that career to having a decade where I'm consistently going to the finals, but I'm really good and I'm at the top of the game, but I do lose a lot. Like, I don't think I would want that career as much as the other career. Does that make sense? So to me, that makes it very simple. You know? JP, thanks for the 5. I just learned that Bill Russell invented the concept of jumping for a block. I'm sorry, I can't count that error for much. Yeah, I do hate when people say that Bill Russell is better than Wilt, because people of that era didn't even think that Bill Russell was better than Wilt. I hate that mentality, because that leans, I think, too far into the mentality that, like, rings over everything, because Bill Russell had the most stacked teams in the NBA. Like, he wasn't statistically very good at all. He averaged, like, 11 points. So I feel like people have this backwards logic when it comes to Wilt and Bill, where it's like, Wilt is just, like, we talk about Wilt like a legend. Like, literally, there's so many stat lines that players put up, and it's always a caveat, which is like, this is the first time anyone's done it since Wilt, right? So it's almost like he's so great and was so fucking dominant that, like, people just disregard it as like, okay, well, we don't even discuss it, right? But it's funny because people act like Wilt's stats are inflated, which is true, right? It's inflated for its time, but then they don't apply that logic to Bill. Because Bill Russell averaged like 11 points in the supposed era where his stats would be inflated, right? So if you're saying that, oh, Wilt averaged 50 points a game back then, but that would only be like 25 points a game today, you have to apply that same logic to Bill Russell, which is that he only averaged 11 points back then, which means today he would average, what, like 5? Right? It's bizarre because people like treat Bill's 11 rings as like legit, like that means something, like he won 11 times. But then people look at Wilt's 50 a game and they're like, that just doesn't count. It's inconsistent logic, and that's really fucking frustrating. Bill Russell was not better than Wilt. Even Bill Russell talks about that. And you know what's funny? So literally, at my old apartment complex, there was this old dude who was smoking outside one day, like literally fucking old as fuck, and he was watching baseball. So on his phone. So I asked him some questions about like what he thinks of Shohei Ohtani today, because that's all I really know. And he gave some opinions, but he was of the opinion that like back in the day, baseball players were better and stuff like that. So then I asked about what do you think about Jordan LeBron? And he surprised me because he like kind of ignored that. And he was like, he literally said, Wilt Chamberlain would have picked up Michael Jordan and stuffed him in his pocket. And I was like, what the fuck? Like he just skipped past the Jordan LeBron stuff. So then that made me realize that, okay, people will always feel like from their generation, their player is better. But it did stick out to me that he's not talking about fucking Bill Russell. Like, he's talking about Wilt Chamberlain. That's the player from that era that was iconic. It's in more recent years that people have started putting Bill Russell ahead because the rings mentality has taken over. Only points, rebounds, and assists matters how Wilt gets overrated. But Bill Russell literally wouldn't be a thing today. Like, literally, like, you're talking about Rudy Gobert today. Because you're talking about a dude who averages like 5 points and only plays defense. That's not the gap in, like, you have to show up somewhere statistically to be all-time great, right? 11 rings doesn't matter that much when you have the most stacked team by a huge margin in an era when there's like only so many players in the NBA. It's really frustrating. It is the ultimate rings mentality, you know? It's just like, it's completely ignoring like actual stats and everything like that, because those do matter to a degree. I'm not saying stats matter completely, but it's like one dude's averaging 50, the other dude's averaging 11. Like, it's like, who's better, LeBron in 2014 or like Kawhi in 2014? You know, like, but imagine that gap but much bigger, you know? Just because Bill was on the winning team, but he was nowhere near as impactful as Wilt Chamberlain. Bill Russell averaged 15 to 17 points per game. Okay, well that means he would average like 8 points per game today, right? I'm telling you to look into this. Bill was better. No, everyone from that time talks about Wilt. They don't fucking talk about Bill during that era. That's the fucking crazy thing. They all hype up Wilt. Wilt was the Superman of the NBA during that time. It's in recent times that rings have become like the end-all be-all, so people throw out all context and they're like, well, best player on the best team is just superior to that guy, right? It's kind of like, by that logic, fucking LeBron in 2018, like, how's he going to beat that Warriors team? There's no point he was ever going to beat that Warriors team. That doesn't change the fact that he was better. What the fuck? This is insane. This is insane. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. Is that happening right now? The impact Bill Russell has on defense is 10 times any other defensive player has today. That is just exaggeration based on jack shit. That's just trying to hype up a way to justify Bill's 11 rings as being representative of Bill like actually being like this god during that era. But he wasn't. Nobody talked about him like that. All right. This is now getting way off. Oh, wait. This is now getting way off, and I do have to pack a lot for the... now we're not even arguing, like, players that we've all seen. We're arguing players that we've, like, heard of. If some of you have watched live Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, I'd be very shocked. But I imagine that's not the case. Yeah. We're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it because at this point we're just hyping up. We're scaling mythical people. That's why I don't count NBA before the merger era because it's just too vague and no footage or anything like that. JP says also thanks to the 5-man. Also, champion in an era of 8 teams is like getting a ring after the conference finals. It's legit uncomparable to modern times. Yeah, getting a ring after the con. Yeah, it's just not really comparable. It's not really comparable. All right, everybody. All right. We are. He did win 5 MVPs to Wilt's 4 when players were voting. Players hated Wilt, though. Players hated Wilt. But he was generally, like, if you look at all quotes, interviews from back then, and even Bill's own words, Wilt was the far superior player. But he was just strongly disliked by fucking everybody. Have you read Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's letter to Wilt? All right, everybody. We are going to call it here. Thank you all for tuning in. Oh, New X7, I'll just answer you real quick. Morge, do you think Dragon and Shanks have or will meet as adults? What about Dragon and Shamrock? What do you think each one's opinion on each other will be like? I'm curious about a Dragon-Shamrock meeting, because maybe Dragon would recognize him as... I wonder if Dragon's aware that the baby that he tried to save did get away and grew up into Shanks. I don't know if that'll ever be acknowledged or not. I don't know. It's hard to say. All right, everybody. We are going to call it here. Thank you all for tuning in. Reminder, there will not be a stream this Monday. There will be a stream next Friday if a chapter drops. Also, make sure to jump in on this deal while you can, because you can buy 2, get 4 of any posters you want. Island posters, boss posters, ships posters. You can mix and match them. This deal is never happening again. All right, this is our holiday mega deal. You can buy 2, get any 4. So if you've been thinking about getting the posters but haven't yet, you can get 6 for the price of 2. So this is the most insane deal we're doing. This goes away after December. This is done after December. This is the only time you can do this. And we have some posters that are exclusive to this month, such as Dominator vs. Rocks and Skypea Going Merry. So make sure to get yours while you can. And yeah, with that, I will talk to you